Hello, it's the end of the year, so we're going to take a quick look at what's happened in the last 12 months and then look ahead to 2014. We're going to look at some of the shows we've been to and some of the shows we're going to go to, and also some of the figures of this year, take a look at how that's going to pan out next year, and some of the features we're going to be looking at, including a preview of Nordic countries next year.
There is rarely a dull moment in the construction industry, and 2013 was no exception. In terms of the manufacturing sector, we've had some merger and acquisition activity. Most recently with Volvo Construction Equipment buying the articulated hauler business from Terex, and the price of that was $160 million US. That was a big deal for the industry. We've also seen Chinese manufacturers continue their march into Europe with acquisitions and organic growth. Lugong, for instance, has been cementing its presence on the continent with the purchase of a components manufacturer in Poland next to its existing Dresda plant. It's also expanded elsewhere in Europe as it seeks to increase its presence here.
Among the biggest stories among contractors during 2013 has been the long-running saga between Cellini and Improgilo. The merger of the two contractors was agreed by both parties this year, and in future the company will be known as Cellini Improgilo. In Poland, procurement is still an issue, and it's one that's been flagged up by FIEC and the EIC. Despite changes in regulations and in contract terms, it's still proving to be a big problem. FIEC and EIC say that the country faces a combination of poorly prepared tenders and unfairly modified FIDIC contract conditions which don't comply with the accepted international standards. They said this had resulted in low efficiency of the national construction investment programs and low socio-economic value.
And we couldn't do a review of the projects of 2013 without mentioning the biggest one underway in Europe at the moment, and that's the Crossrail project in London, which has reached a few milestones this year. The first of its rail tunnels under London was completed in October, in fact, and that is a 6.8 kilometre tunnel between Royal Oak in West London and Farringdon in the centre of the city. The entire project includes 42 kilometres of tunnelling, and it's well underway, up to 40 metres beneath London, and more than half the total is in fact now complete, and we'll be updating you on that project again, of course, next year. Elsewhere in Russia, we of course have the preparations for the Sochi Winter Olympics, which have seen lots of construction projects underway, including infrastructure, transportation routes leading up to the events, as well as those sports venues themselves. This project hasn't been without controversy, of course, and you can follow our news stories on that online as well.
In the materials sector, there's been a big reorganisation between Holcim and Cemex. In this new agreement, Holcim will take over the Cemex assets in West Germany, and they will exchange it for the assets in the Czech Republic. The two companies are also looking to combine their operations in Spain, but after a complaint, this is going to be investigated by the European Commission.
Construction equipment also developed apace in 2013, and I'd say the biggest news from the sector in Europe has been the introduction of stricter diesel exhaust gas emissions legislation, and this has come in the form of the EU Stage 3B legislation, and that of course is going to transition to Stage 4 next year, which is even stricter. Now, this has affected engine manufacturers and the original equipment manufacturers alike. Engine manufacturers obviously coming up with the new technology, lots of after-treatment systems on these new engines, and the manufacturers of the equipment have often had to redesign whole machines to accommodate this new technology, and they've added lots of other new bits as well at the same time. We've covered that in great detail over the year, and of course we'll be continuing to look ahead next year as the next phase comes in again.
Every 3 years, the entire industry descends on Munich for the huge Bauma show, and it really is enormous. There were many launches, of course, and it was a great chance to meet an awful lot of people. Some were hoping that Bauma would kickstart the industry. Well, the jury's out on that still probably, but we'll just have to wait and see what happens.
I also travelled out to the Comitech show in Ankara in Turkey, which was a very interesting event, I must say. This is a fast-growing market, and I got a chance to meet local manufacturers like Hydromech, which is growing very quickly and looking at its options in Europe. But the show also featured big international names like Caterpillar, Volvo, JCB, to name just three. And I have to say there was a very palpable sense of optimism at the show about the future of the Turkish market, so we'll be keeping our eye on that as well.
There was a new show in the UK this year, Plantworks. It seemed pretty small compared to Bauma, but it had a pretty solid start, and it's going to return in 2015 at a new venue. So, now let's turn to 2014. There are going to be a few shows next year, none as big as Bauma, but the main one is going to be ConExpo in Las Vegas. Then we're also going to have Samata in Italy, Smopic in Spain, and Hillhead in a quarry in the middle of England. KHL, the publisher of Construction Europe, will also be putting on a number of shows again this year. They include the International Rental Exhibition and Access Platform Exhibition, and they'll take place at the same time in June in Amsterdam. Then there's the second edition of the International Construction Economic Forum, ICEF, which will take place in London in October next year. The first of these was held this year in Amsterdam, and Helen, you were there.
Yes, that's right, and I think a key highlight for me was the keynote address from José María Aznar, who is the former Prime Minister of Spain. And he spoke a lot about the importance of the construction equipment industry for the European market and what that meant for the economy as a whole. And I think next year's event will really get a chance to build on that. So I'm looking forward to it.
Yes, it's going to be interesting.
Yeah, I think so. And we should look out for announcements about the keynote speakers, because we have got someone exciting in the pipeline, so keep your eyes peeled.
Watch this space.
The 2014 editorial programme for Construction Europe also includes a special regional focus on the Nordic countries, and that will be taking place in our September issue. So we'll be on the lookout for any news and commentary from the region, and that is Norway, Sweden, Denmark and Finland.
Well, it looks like Europe has finally bottomed out, and there's going to be some sort of progress during 2014, a little bit more in 2015 and then on into 2016. According to Euroconstruct, it said that this year represented the lowest point for construction volumes, with total output across the 19 countries it monitors. They're forecast to fall 3%. For 2014, construction output across those 19 countries is expected to total 0.9%, with the largest increase forecast for Ireland, 9.8%, but off a fairly low base, it has to be said. Hungary, 7.4%, Switzerland and Norway both 2.6%. So a little bit of an optimistic end to the year. We will look forward to seeing you in the new year, either at a show or through print or through videos. So until then, have a very happy and prosperous new year.
Goodbye.